Hi there and welcome. I am Jenna Allen. Embodied living practitioner. I am a life coach who works with people, teaching them mindfulness strategies, codependence, resolving resolution strategies, and all of that. This video today is going to be from a presentation I did on resolving codependence, and I thought it very pertinent to the week ahead as everybody's planning to meet up with family and connect with people maybe they haven't seen in a while, or connect into maybe some difficult relationships or some challenges that we don't necessarily have to face on a day-to-day basis. But this information might also help you on a day-to-day basis as well, or I shouldn't say might, it will. So in my classes, I define codependence as always having our octopus tentacles in someone else's business, trying to control what other people perceive or feel or do or don't do, how they take care of themselves or not, like whether they stop drinking, whether they clean up their mess, whether they think that you did something from the truth of your heart, or whether they think you are being malicious, right? Trying to control what other people are doing, thinking, saying, believing, and especially what they're thinking about us. We often have our subconscious octopus tentacles out into other people in social settings, for example. We want to control how someone sees us, whether they like us or not. But when in reality, they choose how to look upon us, and that's not within our control. They can choose to look upon us with heartfelt compassion, or to look upon us with disdain, even if we think we're doing something that is supportive, loving, or helpful, or whatever, right? And these are just little teeny tiny examples of codependence. There is like every different level and layer of codependence, and everyone experiences it at different points in time. An example of that way, just an example to follow up with what we said about choosing how we choose to look upon things. If you think about like a homeless person right now, you can choose to think about a homeless person or see them and look upon them with compassion and thinking like, oh, they likely struggle with mental illness. Or you can look at them like, thief, mooch, right? So like we can choose how we're going to view something. And so why do we ever think that it's our responsibility to manipulate somebody else's perceptions, right? Or control how they perceive us, right? And so we choose how we see the world, and we choose our own perceptions. We may not consciously choose them all the time because we have stigma and prejudices that we aren't even aware of. And of course that's present, but ultimately how we choose to see others is in fact a choice, right? And how others choose to see us is their own choice. And frankly, it's none of our business, right? This is something that I struggle with greatly. Just not being accepted by a certain family member, or not being, like all of that. It's very hurtful. But in the past, I used to be very codependent on that and say, well, they need to, or they should, or they blah, 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 or they, right? It was not me focused. It wasn't I focused. And it wasn't just, hey, I'm not going to go over there, or hey, I'm not going to, do this thing or that thing, right? If I don't like the way that interactions are going, or if I don't like being around certain things, right? And so what is my business, right? Ultimately, how others choose to see us is their own choice and none of our business. So what is our business? It is only my responsibility to act with loving compassion. And if someone chooses to be offended because they haven't worked through their own childhood traumas that are tainting their perception of other people, then it's up to them to change and heal that. It's not up to me to try and convince them or something, right? That I wasn't offensive, or that I wasn't meaning to hurt their feelings or whatever. Obviously, it's good to collaborate and have a good conversation and be able to talk things through, as long as that's going in an equal and collaborative conversation, and no angers being projected or any of that, which can be a challenge. It's a huge challenge. in my life, especially. And that's why I teach this, is because I have struggled for years so much with codependence, and I started to find these different little ways of thinking about it, and things that kind of pull me back out of that codependence. So essentially, really, codependence is reaching out those octopus tentacles and pulling in responsibility that isn't yours. I call it undue responsibility, right? Taking on undue responsibility. If you imagine like you're standing in one space, and maybe it's your coworker, a boss, or a challenging family member, or somebody in your life that's challenging, then you see them across from you, and you can imagine or picture that you have these octopus tentacles, and you're reaching over and saying, "Oh, your feelings, I hurt them. Oh, let me take care of those for you," rather than saying, "Oh, okay, you know what? I didn't mean that. And now it's and this is what I really meant." And so therefore, your responsibility to now either decide you're going to have compassion for me or continue to be upset, right? Or choose to see my innocence and know that I would never mean to hurt anyone, or choose to play a victim and think I'm, victimizing you or something, right? And thinking about like energy wise, like I'm spending my energy trying to reach in and reach out and manipulate the way others feel, or what they need from me, or what they need to see, or all of that. And really it's this leaking of energy that then we don't have for ourselves. And I really truly believe that this is the cause of autoimmune disease. And even like for females, we do this with males a lot. And I would say that if you were to look at the psychological connection between feminine diseases like breast or cancer, and breast cancer or uterine cancer, things like that, I'd bet that it has something to do with this codependence and this constant leaking of our energy. Because when I work with people on doing emotional clearing who've had breast cancer in their past, or who have a lot of feminine problems in their feminine center, we come across this codependent stuff so many times in their subconscious mind when we're healing, and we're looking in there and we're saying, "Hey body, why did you develop this?" That's what the subconscious mind goes to without me even guiding them there in any way. I didn't even notice that this was a pattern until I started working on my own codependent stuff. Then I was like, "Oh, I've been seeing this for like 10 years with all my clients." And so, there's so many different ways that we engage in this codependence and this reaching over our octopus tentacles into things. And we even do it like spiritually with God, saying, "Oh, well, you would make it this way if you loved me," or, those kind of things. So as parents, we do it. We always want to protect our children from discomfort, and we overdo for them. Like some teenage children's parents out there are doing their laundry, and, things like that. It's little things, and it could be a little bit bigger things. It could be, letting an unemployed adult child live with them rent free, without some kind of agreement or working towards some progress. Or, it's really like we are either bending over backward for people, or rescuing them, or giving unsolicited advice, or we are actually allowing people to kind of run us over, and then we're pissed that they did that they took advantage of us, and that codependence comes out as anger and all of that, right? And so our responsibility is to only take care of me and show up with integrity, compassion, and love. Whatever anybody else says or does after that, none of my business. None of my business. They can choose to accept my showing up in my integrity, and that it doesn't look like what they would choose, and that it doesn't look like what benefits them anymore, right? Because it's not in our integrity to take on undue responsibility, right? And so we want to let others take out their own garbage. We want to let others handle their own responsibilities and stop subconsciously sending them the message that we don't trust them to, because then they're building subconscious resentment. Because every time we take care of something for other people that they can take care of for themselves, they will subconsciously resent us, because we are saying to them, you can't do it, let me do it for you, right? And so like responsibility. One example of responsibility is that if something is making you uncomfortable, say it. It is possible to do that with love and compassion, and to put down responsibility for how someone else is going to take it. That's not your responsibility to own. It is your responsibility to come to them with integrity and not come at them, right? And so coming to them with compassion and love and ownership, saying, hey, you know what? I'm feeling a little uncomfortable here. This is, this is what I'm going to do from now on, because I'm uncomfortable here. And they may have a collaborative way. They may say, oh, you know what? Some of this is my own fault. They may say, oh, well, what if we do it this way differently? Or they may say, how could you dare? And blah, blah, blah. And then you can say, well, this is my boundary around discomfort. I'm not going to allow myself to be, increasingly uncomfortable or continue this discomfort. And so I have to do something. And maybe this is the first answer, or maybe this is the answer for now, or maybe we can come up with something else together, right? But responsibility for how someone else takes it is not ours to own, right? And so we're carrying all of this stuff, and we've got our bubbles just full of everybody else's wants and desires and needs. So how can the universe, how can God ever give you what's yours when you are so busy carrying around what belongs to everyone else? It doesn't make any sense, right? If your bubble is full, then you can't let anything else in. So we've got to take out the trash. We've got to dump it out. We've got to give people responsibility for their own self, for their own perspectives, for their own shit, right? And so again, back to that, then how do we do that? Well, we collaborate. We say, wow, I'm exhausted from doing things this way, and I need a change. What do you think we could do about it, right? Or I need a change, so I'm gonna blah, blah, blah right now, and we have to think about like our standards and set those for ourselves, right? We have to say, my standards for interaction and communication between myself and other people is that it's positive and uplifting, right? I'm not going to sit on the phone, with somebody every, week or every day who's just dumping in the space and, using me as their therapist or whatever, right? I'm going to, have higher standards than that for myself. I'm going to only engage with people whose relationships make my life fulfilling and good. And if I can support that other person and say, oh, well, here's a book, or you're going through something, have you seen a therapist or whatever, and they take the help or they get their own help, then that's fine. But if they continue to just refuse any support or help, or be unwilling to reach out and get some other support for themselves, then I don't need to take responsibility for that. That's not my role. I have higher standards in my relationships, right? My relationships are positive, they're uplifting, they're inspiring, right? And so sometimes, everybody fears like making ultimatums in relationships. So a lot of times we do have to say, well, when this is going to happen and I'm uncomfortable, then I'm going to do this. And then, they can choose to say, well, I don't want you to do that, so I'm going to change, or I'm going to work on this thing and all of that. But we want to, we want to honor our own boundaries. We sometimes have boundaries and they seem and look like ultimatums, and everybody fears ultimatums so bad. But really, we sometimes have to say, unless you're in therapy, then you can't stay here. Or, unless whenever, if somebody's an alcoholic or something, whenever you're drinking, I'm just not going to come to that party with you, or I'm not going to, whatever that is. This is self-care. This is honoring your standards. We cannot be in integrity. Integrity is integral, whole. We cannot be in our integrity if we're not upholding our standards, right? If we're tolerating anything, if we're settling, if we're acting from our place of excellence and not genius, then we're not whole. We're not in our integrity. That excellence to genius reference comes from a book called The Big Leap. He talks about how when you're in your zone of excellence, it looks really great, but it doesn't feel as fulfilling as your zone of genius. But back to standards. If we don't honor our standards, how can the universe really even know what we want to send more of it to us, right? And I teach the law of attraction a lot. We have to be acknowledging, setting our standards, setting our boundaries, so that the universe can say, oh, look at that, she wants self-care. Oh, look at that, she is so committed to her desire for a peaceful relationship that she is unwilling to allow any unrest in drama and whatever into her life, right? The universe needs more proof that you want it before the universe delivers it to you, right? And so there'll be some form of difficult action that goes against this old unhealthy pattern that you're going to have to make. It's going to be difficult. You're going to have to say something challenging. You're going to have to maybe not say directly, hey, I have to stop talking to you every day, but like actually just start pulling away a little more, and maybe eventually face that confrontation that comes. You will have to do something that's challenging and difficult, but you will immediately be given feedback from the divine. You'll see a shift, you'll see a movement, and sometimes these divine winks, they come as what Florence Scovel Shinn referred to as sticks and twigs. She said that as ancient, as our ancestors, sailed around the world and they were approaching land, that they knew that they were getting close because they would start to see branches and sticks and twigs and, different things. And so she was like, that's their sign that they're getting close. And the universe will send us these divine winks whenever we make these big shifts like this. And it may seem minuscule when you're making these tiny shifts to resolve codependence in your life, but it's definitely going to result in some kind of movement or shift, and you'll see it right away. In Florence Scovel Shinn's book, she talks about how this woman wanted to attract or manifest new dishware in her house, and she did whatever Florence told her to do and set the intention. The next day she got a cracked plate from her girlfriend, and she's like, well, what the hell, like I asked for dishware, like a set, and I was thinking of all this fancy stuff. And Florence said, well, you know what, that's your sticks and twigs. That's just the divine showing you that, yep, it's coming. Here's the first little manifestation of it. You're on your way, kind of thing. So you will experience that when you start to set boundaries around codependence. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about that with you as the holiday season is approaching, and I wanted to give some of this interesting content away because I'm doing this class, and as I go, I'm building all the information in it, and I'm like, just my mind is blown. So I'm excited that one day soon this class will be coming to you. So look for that. I'm going to need another test group. So I'll send out an offer to do this class for free for a few people. And then I will, and then eventually it'll be a paid offering or part of a program or package or something. But thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions about codependence or anything, I love to answer questions. I love to write back to emails. I love to reply to texts. So just find my information below, and we will talk soon. Take care. Be well.